The Lakers are 15-13 and officially 1/3 done with the season. I talk about the season that's been, the games coming up, and celebrate an important milestone in the Lakers Takes podcast. Let's get into it. So first game I want to talk about is Lakers versus Celtics. That was the first game kicked off last week. Obviously Lakers versus Celtics, in my opinion, only rivalry the Lakers have. Everyone else, just flavor of the week, flavor of the month, flavor of the year, flavor of the era. But this Lakers-Celtics, every Lakers fan has a memory of Lakers-Celtics of triumph and tragedy. It's the only organization throughout the decades you can say that about. So to me, it's their only true blue rival is that dang leprechaun of the Boston Celtics. And Lakers-Celtics did not disappoint. Lakers whooped on those Celtics 117-102. It was a great game, and it was great for the Lakers, who've been struggling this season, to have a great game beating some Celtics behind. So it was really good. It was phenomenal. LeBron had a great game, 30 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. Russ was great as well, 24 points, 11 assists. Lakers had a great run in the third quarter, outscoring the Celtics 30-21, which is something the Lakers have struggled with. Those third quarter woes have been, something that's been consistent this season. So it was really great to see them, kind of conquer that demon and get a big win. It kind of felt like, hey, maybe this is a turning point. Of course, it was not. This Lakers team doesn't have a turning point. For every triumph, there is a tragedy, and that tragedy this time was the Memphis Grizzlies on Thursday. They played the Memphis Grizzlies, and they laid an egg. They lost 108-95. They had a terrible game all around. Russ had a rough game. AD was getting blocked. He was getting in jump ball situations. He was getting the ball stolen from in traps that he had, driving to the basket. It was a really rough game for Anthony Davis for sure, and after this loss, the team was 13-13, and again, kind of just shrouded in mediocrity, struggling to do anything. One game up, one game down, one game up, one game down. That's been consistently happening, and it happened again against the Grizzlies. It was proof that, hey, even though the Celtics win felt great, it's not a turning point. This team is still going to be struggling, at least for the foreseeable future, as they figure out all these situations that they have and kind of get to a good spot. And then before the Oklahoma City game, we got some more bad news. Anthony Davis is out. He's having issues with his knee, and he was a game-time decision. Ultimately, they decided to go against him playing, so he was going to miss the game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who've been the Lakers' rival for this year, at least, with those 2 wins where the Lakers were blowing out the Thunder and then ended up giving up, those games against the Thunder. So this was an interesting matchup. After a disappointing loss with the Grizzlies, you should be able to beat the Thunder, but hey, what's this Lakers team going to do? We don't know. And the difference was this time was the first time LeBron played in a Lakers-Thunder game this year. And that turned out to be the difference maker. LeBron had a monster game, 33 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. He was great. He was all over the place. He was dominant. He was backing down guys. He was getting to the basket, getting whatever bucket he wanted from whatever spot on the floor he wanted. Absolutely electric, absolutely dominant. It's scary seeing him just dunk over 20-year-olds when he's 36 and 19 years in the league, and he's still... It's a mismatch when the 20-year-old goes up against the 36-year-old. There's not too many people in this world who are 36 who can say that to any 20-year-old in any context. So impressive LeBron's doing it in his profession, which is a physical one in a sport. Avery Bradley balled out as well. He had a very good game, ended up scoring 22 points. And Avery Bradley's been someone that Lakers Nation's kind of been angry about because he's been getting consistent starts and not played consistently in those starts. And this was a game where Avery Bradley said, hey, that's why I'm here. I'm a 3-and-D guy. I got the threes. I got the D. Scoring 22 points, playing good defensively. Yeah, he had an overall good game. Now, when it comes to Avery Bradley, I do like him as a player. I do like him as a person. I do like his style. But, I think about that Wooden quote on don't confuse activity for production. And I feel like that with Bradley here, where he's moving, he's trying, he's working really hard, but what do we really have to show for it ultimately? Is there actual tangible good production, or is he just a guy who's really giving his best effort and just his skill set compared to the players he's up against, he's in a mismatch, he's in a disadvantage in those situations? So that's kind of how I feel with Bradley. But this was a game where it all kind of matched. His hustle, his heart, and his production were all there. So always good to see. I don't think it's something that you can, pencil in now and it's going to be consistent. but I'm happy when I get it. I mean, he's already playing, so might as well get the good production to go along with it. And the Lakers definitely got that from him in this victory against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And finally, the last game to wrap up from this previous week was the Lakers against the Orlando Magic. That just happened on Sunday, and the Lakers won 106-94. LeBron James was, again, dominant. You're starting to hear it in every game. LeBron's dominant, LeBron's dominant, LeBron's dominant. Well, he was dominant once again. He had a triple-double, 30 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, and that third quarter especially, when he got those, multiple blocks where his head was bordering at the rim and just swatting the ball away. It was just so dynamic. It was just so powerful. Incredible game by LeBron. Definitely was, the spark plug, the engine, the tires, everything about this team. He was the absolute vehicle. And again, third quarter woes. Maybe they're behind us, because in this game, the Lakers outscored the Magic 36-10 in that third quarter. They went on a 21-0 run in that third quarter. There was 8 minutes where the Magic did not score a basket, a field goal at all in that third quarter, and that's the game. That was just too much for the Magic to overcome. They ended up getting into a huge deficit, and I believe it got as high as 23 points. 25 points, actually. Got as high as 25 points, and they did enough in the fourth quarter to force LeBron to stay in the game. They did enough in the fourth quarter to force the Lakers to still stay a little engaged, but they never seriously had a good run or a good threat of winning that game. Once that third quarter happened, it really just kind of sealed their fate and ultimately sealed the Lakers' second victory in a row. That's 2 back-to-back. We have a winning streak going on, and if the Lakers are able to win their next game against the Dallas Mavericks on Wednesday, that would be their 3rd win in a row, the first time they've won 3 games in a row this season. So maybe they're turning a corner. Maybe they're finally getting it together. Maybe we still have many rough games coming up. Time will tell. But it's good to have a 2-game winning streak. Let's see if they can make it a 3-game winning streak. All right, so now that we are 1/3 done with the season, I thought it would be a good time to go ahead and talk about the team and where they're at, right? At the quarter mark, I gave out the quarter awards. Now we're at the third, mark, right? We went from 25 to percent done with the season and 33.3% done with the season. So I want to talk about how the team's done, how the team's actually played. Because before I give individual awards, now I want to talk holistically about the good things about this team and some of the rough things about this team. So here I wrote on Lakers-Takes.com a nice full-length article on this, and I'm going to kind of go on those topics right now and kind of talk about them a little bit in depth. But definitely check out the article. It's very detailed. I think it's like 1,400 words, and I was trimming stuff down, trying to get it as tight as possible. So I think it's really quality work. And obviously, if you like hearing me talk right now about the Lakers, you'll probably like reading what I have to say about the Lakers. So I have a few takeaways on the season so far, and here's some of the things that I've taken away from the season that's happened. One thing is the team's still figuring it out. It's very clear this many games in, the Lakers are still trying to figure things out, trying to figure out their rotations, solidify roles, see who they need, who they don't need, who's starting, who's on the bench, who's DMPing, maybe even potential trades. So I feel like they told us and they warned us when the season started, when they didn't take the preseason seriously. Some of their logic was kind of, hey, it's going to take us months to figure this out. It's not a big deal if we don't take these 2 weeks seriously, because we're going to have months of work on this. And, although I disagreed with their attitude towards the preseason, it's starting to make sense because, look, it's taking a long time. It's almost Christmas, and they're still struggling to figure it out because they always knew it was going to take this long. And so far that's happened. So I think despite the fact that it's been a frustrating season and maybe even a disappointing season to watch, we have to understand that it's a long season, and they are starting to figure it out. They are starting to get a little bit above 500. So hopefully that trend can continue, but definitely that's hold true. They're figuring it out, and it's definitely a work in progress. One thing I predicted before the season started that's also turned out to be true is the defense is terrible. Their defense is rough. I thought at best they could be somewhere near the top, like the bottom end of the top 10, but I thought they'd be more in the middle of the pack, and that's exactly where they are. At the time of me writing this article, the Lakers were 104.8 defensive rating, which puts them 15th in the league. That's about as mediocre as it gets, and to me that's a terrible defense when you have a defensive-minded coach and you're barely able to be literally in the middle. Like literally in the middle. So yeah, that's been rough. I think they've made a lot of trades from last season, going for offense over defense, and that's the consequence, is that your defense is going to take a significant drop. They went from one of the best defenses to 15th ranked. And yes, I think they can maybe get to 10 once they get healthy, once they start taking things a little more seriously and get into a rhythm. Maybe they can get like 11, 12, 10, 9, 8 best defense in the league, but that's going to be tough to do. And right now, they are who they are, which is an average defense to a bad defense on any given night. So hopefully those things get adjusted and improve. But that's definitely stood out to me. This defense is not good. Another thing that stuck out to me is LeBron James. He's pretty good at basketball, and he's still good at basketball. And that's something that, we all know, but every year you kind of hold your breath a little. Is this the year he starts to show something? And so far, for the most part, it hasn't been. Yeah, he had that abdominal issue, and he hasn't played in as many games. But again, 30 points in the last 6 of the last 8 games he's played. He's been phenomenal. He's been everything for this team. And his numbers show it, right? He's still leading the team in points. He's very high up there with the 6 at 6.6. His rebounds have taken a dip at 4.8. But he's scoring, he's passing the ball, distributing the ball very well. You see him out there jumping out the gym, blocking everybody. He's been having a great season still, despite everything, and I feel pretty comfortable that he's going to stay that good. Like I said, it's year to year with LeBron now because you're holding your breath, and I do see a little slowdown. I don't see him going full steam ahead. I don't see him quite as explosive, but still, like LeBron losing a step when he's already 3 steps ahead of everybody means now he's still 2 steps ahead of everybody, which is still really, really good. So he's still in that top tier, worst case scenario, top 5, top 3 in this league. And when you have a guy like that, you have a chance to win championships, and the Lakers definitely do with a guy like LeBron James. He's still a leader, still the best player, still good at basketball. All right, I have 2 more topics here about this first third of the season I want to talk about, and it's involved with the other players that they picked up, as vet minimums or gave contracts to, and how they've been performing. We all always talking about LeBron and AD and Russ. There are a lot of other players in this team that factor into how good the team is or can be. And 2 players that have really shined for me are Malik Monk and Carmelo Anthony. Now with Malik Monk, I wasn't a Monk believer, not going to lie. I thought he's just a role player. He's not going to be that explosive. He's not good defensively. And it turns out he is explosive. And yes, he's still not good defensively, but when he's hot, when he becomes microwave Monk, when he goes in those spurts where he scores 11 points in like 4 minutes, it gets electric. He gets electric. He gets exciting. He gets dominant, and he can really swing the momentum of a game and take things from kind of average to electrifying and kind of inspiring the whole team. He has that ability. He has that power. I'm all in on the Monk propaganda, and I'm very, very glad the Lakers were able to get Monk. I think he's a very, very valuable asset, and definitely one of the best pickups the Lakers had this season, no doubt about it. And of course, Carmelo Anthony, a player Lakers Nation has been fawning over and dreaming of since like 2012, basically. There have been Carmelo Anthony to the Lakers rumors. Never happened. Turned out it felt like it was never going to happen, and ultimately it finally did this year. He joined. Now he joined a vet minimum deal. I thought it was kind of a little too late. I was excited still to have Carmelo Anthony because Carmelo Anthony's a cool player to have on your team. But I thought very limited role. He'll just pop up and shoot some threes every now and then, and that'll be the end of it. But no, been much better than that. The fans really love Carmelo Anthony. It's really shining how much they love him. As soon as he gets subbed in, just huge roar from the crowd, standing ovation, like he did something the night before that deserves like an ovation like that, right? Like that's the energy Carmelo has been getting from Staples Center, and it's not just the love, it's the production. Minute he hits a 3, the crowd erupts as if like LeBron just scored a dunk. It's the only time I hear Staples Center get that loud in the modern era. Carmelo hits a 3, they get going, they get excited, it gets exciting, right? And that's just a really, really special moment. And his production's been there. He's had games where he's helped win the game, shooting 70% from 3, being dominant, just going up way above and beyond his pay grade and what his role was expected to be. He's one of the best shooters Lakers have had in quite some time. He's shooting 41% from 3, which is a career high. He's been great. He's gone above and beyond. And we love Staples Melo. Now, the Lakers got a lot of players on vet minimum contracts this season, and some have hit, some have not. I want to talk about some that have not. One is Kent Bazemore. He went from starting to he's consistently getting DNPs, consistently not playing because he hasn't turned out to be that much of a good defender and pretty much no offensive bag whatsoever. So it's really been such a negative that Frank Vogel's deemed him unplayable. And that's disappointing because they picked him up as a player who's going to contribute to the team, and to see him go from that to DMPs means he's not contributing at all, and we'll have to figure out what's going on there. So that's definitely been a disappointing thing. I'm not too surprised by that. I thought Kent Bazemore wasn't going to be very good, and it turns out, unfortunately, I was very right about that. Another player I also didn't think was going to be pretty good, that it also happened, was DeAndre Jordan. It was rough, him starting, him getting those positions because, AD doesn't want to play the 5, and DeAndre Jordan can kind of cover that shift that AD doesn't want to pick up, and he didn't do a good job of it. He hasn't done a good job of it. He makes too many mistakes on defense or doesn't want to make the correct plays on defense. His offense is explosive from time to time, but I just don't think it's consistent enough to really rely on, to run plays for, or to really outweigh the negatives with him defensively. And that's why he's pretty much seen himself played out of the rotation. Frank Vogel said as much a couple weeks ago that he's going with Dwight Howard as the main big, and they're going for smaller lineups. Now we've seen him a little bit more in the recent games because AD's been out, but that's definitely been something that's disappointing. I'm not surprised by either one. I wasn't excited about those two pickups, but hey, they've happened. They haven't worked out, and we'll see what happens as a trade deadline and the ability to trade some players opens up in the coming weeks. Okay, that's it for that segment. Those are some of my thoughts on the Lakers so far this season. 33% done, 1/3 done. If you want to see the bigger in-depth article, go to Lakers-takes.com. It's right up there for my latest article, Where Are We Now? Talk about all those things with a little more details, a little bit more stats, a little bit more context, just so you can read it and dig into all that information. But it's a really worthwhile read. I highly recommend it. But let's get into the games happening this week. This week the Lakers are playing all road games. They're road tripping, and here's where they're going. They're going to Dallas to play the Mavericks on Wednesday. 4:30 game PT West Coast time, so it's going to be a little bit early, but that's when that game is, Lakers-Dallas. Then on Friday, the Lakers are going to be in Minnesota playing the Timberwolves at 7 p.m. And then on Sunday, the Lakers are playing the Bulls in Chicago, 12:30 p.m. So that's a really early game. It's more of a matinee than an evening match. So those are the 3 games this week. Hopefully the Lakers can get some victories here on the road. It's always tough when you're on a road trip, so I hope the Lakers are able to get productive during that trip. Now, I mentioned talking about podcast accomplishments and accolades, and something that's happened that's pretty big. And the thing that's happened is this right now is the 10th episode of the pod. 10 episodes so far. So I started the pod, I think right as the season was about to begin, or as soon as it started. I can't remember exactly. But we were able to go, episode 0, and then from there up to 10. And I've been pretty consistent. I technically missed last week. That was the only week I've ever missed. But I've been consistent, giving out these podcasts once a week, updating everyone on what's going on, and taking it from there. So I've been very excited about that. One of my, kind of podcast peers he does games coverage, named Sean Capri. His advice about podcasts is always make 10 more. Keep working, make 10 more. You learn more about that than wondering about the camera and is my filter right and my SEO. All those things are important as well. I'm trying to get this podcast out to as many people. So if you know anyone who's a Lakers fan who wants to listen to me talk about Lakers, make sure you share this pod because it really helps. But at the end of the day, the best way for me to get better and to probably get more people interested in it is just to keep doing the work and keep getting the practice. And by showing up every week and keep releasing them, I'm just automatically getting better. So I made my first 10 here. I'm really proud of it. So few people even make it this far, making 10 podcasts consistently, whether the views are high or low or whatever, just working on it and sticking with it. So I made 10. I'm really proud of that. I'm really happy about what I've done. I'm going to keep working hard this year going into next year. And here's to the next 10 podcasts. Let's hope the next 10 are even better than the last 10, and the last 10 were really great. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening to the Lakers Takes podcast, and I'll talk to you next week. Hopefully we're talking about the Lakers having a successful road trip. Hopefully AD's back better than ever, and hopefully we got some Lakers wins.